just mentioned it, the game, and I know you're probably chomping at the bit here to move on to the three o'clock slate and get into one of the premier games in this week one. It's going to be Texans going to LA to play the Rams. Just right off the rip here, Turtle. What are your thoughts on this game? What are your thoughts on the Texans in this season? I'll just give you the floor to kind of wax poetic here about what to expect from the Texans in 2025, and then specifically what you think is going to happen in this game against the Rams, Week 1.
Yeah, I'll start with the game first. I'll talk about the week one game against the Rams, and I'll kind of touch some overarching themes for the Texans. So week one, um, there's some injuries in the Rams side that I think play in the Texans' favor. Their starting tackle, I can't pronounce his first name. It's not Elijah Jackson, but he had blood clots. I think Christian mentioned it. Um, Christian
Lyric,
mentioned it.
Lyric
Yeah,
Jack.
yeah, Alaric Jackson. Um, he's got blood clots. I think he was a limited participant in practice today. That remains to be seen because, as we know, the Texans have a very formidable edge rushing duo in Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. Danielle Hunter extended this offseason. I'm all cool with the extension that he keeps him in Houston until the end of the 2027 season. I am all good with that. We've seen that from Nick Caserio. He extends his guys early is when they produce, and he is kind of a little bit turned the league on its head with some of the contracts he's given out. He gives out short term, a lot of guaranteed money deals. I think he was probably one of the first to kind of start going that route, and I think that's kind of why we see a lot of free agents kind of gravitate towards the Texans. Um, but in any case, uh, I know you guys are probably going to mention the Texans offensive line. We'll just go left to right there. Look, and every single national pundit, PFF, any ranking you want to look at, the Texans are at the bottom of that list when it comes to offensive line. I've been following this team for practically my whole life since I was 8 years old. And I've been locked in this offseason hearing all the noise about the offensive line, about how bad it's going to be. How could you trade your best offensive lineman when your offensive line sucked last year, anyways? Listen, the root of the problem last year, it was a number of things, but I think the main root of the problem was play calling, scheme, and personnel to fit said scheme. And I think why Bobby Slowick ended up losing his job after being a head coaching candidate after CJ Stroud's rookie year was his unwillingness to adapt his scheme to the personnel. Um, you saw Titus Howard say in multiple interviews this offseason that what was being asked of the offensive line from Bobby Slowick just wasn't working with that group. The interior offensive line specifically was probably the worst part of that unit. I'm thankful Shaq Mason is gone. He was so bad last year, and he just got arrested. I don't know. His career is probably over, I would imagine. Um, Listen, you swap out all those guys, and they replaced him with journeyman type guys. And I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but what I think will be the big difference for the Texans offensive line this year is they will be much better coached, and we've seen that throughout the preseason and in practice. Um, the scheme that's being asked of them is more of a power run scheme. I think that fits the personnel better. Listen, Jake Andrews, Ed Ingram, Lake and Tomlinson. Again, none of these guys are world beaters. Those are your starting interior offensive linemen. But if they play within the scheme, I think you can get serviceable play out of them, and that's really kind of all I'm asking for. Titus Howard at right tackle, he's an above average right tackle. I'm cool with him being out there. I think he's an above average tackle. And again, I think he fits the scheme better. He's got position versatility. You can bump inside if you need to bump inside. Um, and the star of the show that, I mean, you guys mentioned Josh Simmons in Kansas City earlier. Ariante Ursary is having one heck of a preseason and one heck of a training camp. Beat out Cam Robinson to start at left tackle as a rookie. And Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter have both been in interviews talking about how they work with Ariante after practice. They love the way he works. And I think one of the best things about Ariante Ursary, which is a huge kind of opposite end of Laramie Tunsil, is he run blocks his ass off. And I think you're going to see a different mentality from this Texans offensive line that you did not see at all last year. And that's going to be, they're going to be tough. They're going to run block their asses off. And look, no, we can. I'll touch on Joe Mixon at some point in this little diatribe, but I don't even think you need Joe Mixon to run the ball effectively if this offensive line can start moving some guys. And we saw that in the preseason. They were able to get some movement. We've seen that in training camp. The joint practices against the Lions, they were able to get some movement. That's a pretty good defensive line, too. So I think this offense will be better than people think. CJ Stroud's totally fine. People said sophomore slump. Again, I think that was a lot more scheme dependent, and he had to overcome a lot of stuff last year. I think combined Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, and Nico Collins were all together for 2 games last year, and that's just your receivers. So you had a bunch of injuries there. You had an underperforming offensive line. You had a play caller that routinely put you in bad spots. They led the league in 3rd and longs because their starting left tackle is supposed to be an all-pro, false started 19 times. Um, a lot of that stuff's going to be much cleaner this year. And I don't need to say much about the defense. This defense is going to be a top 5 defense in the NFL. You've got 2 outstanding pass rushers. The interior defensive line is a meat and potatoes type group, but you bring Sheldon Rankins back. You still got Tim Settle. You got Foley Fudukase still. Again, you don't need those guys to be all pros in there. You just need them to do their jobs. Christian Harris, Roll Tide, is back from his mysterious calf injury that's lasted into last year. He's back now. You still got Toa Toa, Aziz Al Shai. Yep. So I mean, the linebacker core should be solid, and then you get to the DBs. Man, the DBs this is a top 3 defensive back group in the NFL. Kamari Laster, outstanding rookie year. I personally thought he was the best corner out of all the rookies last year, including Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean and all those. I thought Laster was better, point blank. I mean, he allowed a 45 passer rating. Outstanding. Stingley, we know what he is. Kalen Bullock's getting a lot of love this offseason. He had a good rookie year last year. He's come in this year. I think he's bulked up a little bit. He's worked on his angles, and I think he was responsible for kind of giving up some big plays last year, even though he made a lot of interceptions. I expect him to get better. He's been quietly flirting with what I think will be a top 15 year at free safety, and CJ Gardner-Johnson's in there at strong safety for week 1. So not a lot of weaknesses to speak of on that defense. So overall, I'm optimistic. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of been my vibe throughout this training camp. Is I think this team, it's going to look a little bit different than it looked over the last couple of years with Slowick. The offense will look different. I think it's going to be a more power gap scheme running the football. They're going to be tougher. The receiver room is going to look a little bit different. Obviously, you've got some inexperience there. Higgins is going to be your starting wide receiver. Christian Kirk's going to be in the slot, although he ended up on the injury report today, which is one guy that was making noise in training camp was Jalen Noel. He looks really good from a guy who can give you some gadget type plays, return punts. He's got great speed. He's built thicker he's like Tank Dell, but just built thicker. He's just a bigger, stronger guy, despite being like kind of around the same height. So I'm excited to watch him play. But as far as this Rams game goes, listen, the Texans are getting 3.5. It kind of faltered between 2.5 and 3. There was obviously that news about Stafford. The Stafford news came out that he is going to play week 1, so the line shot back up to 3.5. I think you're getting a lot of value there. Now, the one thing that I'm concerned about, obviously, Gerard Verse, great player on the Rams, going up against this offensive line. Braden Fisk, another guy that can move inside and outside, really good player. So that defensive line against the Texans offensive line is going to be a really intriguing matchup. But again, I think this Texans offensive line might surprise some people. And then if I take anything in the Rams-Texans game, honestly, I'm leaning towards the under because I think the Texans are going to – listen, they're going to establish a new brand of football for them, and that's kind of more of a smash-mouth type of football team. I think they're going to try to run the ball. I think they're going to try and put C.J. Stroud in advantageous situations, and I think this Texans defense is going to come out firing against – especially if they don't have Alaric Jackson. Stafford, say what you want about his back, probably a little bit banged up. This defense they've got what D'Amico Ryans calls a kill zone. They have a kill zone. And I think that they play in their head coach's mentality. I mean, they go out there and try to take heads. They'll try to kill you, and I love it. Their defense is fun to watch. So I just listen. Sean McVay's great, but that makes this matchup so intriguing because it's two really good defensive and offensive minds, respectively. The chess match is going to be fun to watch, but I'm taking the Texans. I think 3.5 is a lot of value. Um, it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a close game. So
Yeah, just real quick, Turtle. While you're on that point, I totally agree in terms of the fact that I think this game is going to be defined by the young defensive lines on both sides, and perhaps more appropriately, which of the two offensive lines is going to be able to hold up in protection. You already mentioned Alaric Jackson is injured and out for the Rams, but my bigger concern, just as a Bears fan too, is having Coleman Shelton as your starting center against that Texans defensive front. You're asking for problems no matter who's playing on the interior side of the defensive line. There were reps last year where Coleman Shelton just got absolutely demolished. Now, I don't know if Sean McVay has some kind of magic plan to make it so that he doesn't get completely destroyed by bull rushes and just bigger, more physical defensive tackles. But the way the Texans want to play football and the defensive line that they're going to have, especially with a depleted and kind of talent deficient Rams offensive line, banged up Stafford. You love the weapons that the Rams have to work with, and you obviously love Sean McVay as an offensive mind. But if there are questions about the quarterback's health and the offensive line that's going to be protecting him, going up against, for my money, one of the best defenses in the NFL this year, in the Texans, I think that's really going to be what defines this game. And I'm right there with you on the under. I think that the Texans know that the best way to win this game is going to be controlling the ball, leaning on their defense to just bottle up whatever the Rams try to do. Don't give Sean McVay too much time to maneuver and just win this game on the ground. So I like the under, and I like this just to be a defensive smash mouth game between two very good young defenses and defensive lines specifically.
yeah, this is a 23 to 20, 27 or 20 to 17 game written all over it, in my opinion. One prop I really like, Kyron Williams under 69.5 rushing yards. This Texans defense, they play really fast, man. And I just I don't know where the push is going to come from for the Rams offensive line. And listen, Kyron Williams is not I like him as a player. I think he's a solid player, but he can't overcome like really good defenses and against in a bad matchup. So I think his under 69.5 rushing yards is a really good bet if you're looking at props out there. And yeah, I don't know why I've got confidence the Texans win this football game is because we mentioned it. I think people are largely down on the Texans offensive line when what I've seen in training camp and joint practices and all this stuff is they're going to be better than they were last year. And I think by a considerable margin. I'm not putting them in the top 10 of offensive lines, but I think this is more of a 15, average offensive line than bottom half of the league. This is not a 28th ranked offensive line like it was last year. I think this is somewhere in the realm of 15 to 18, and I think that's good enough for the Texans to be a really good football team this year.
This could also be a game where I think the Texans' defensive line is going to impose their will to the point where they shut down the running game for the Rams and also force Matt Stafford, who already has questions coming into this year, to throw the ball way more times than I'm sure their offense would like. And it plays right into the Texans' hands.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if we're all going to be in agreement on them winning the football game, but listen, I'm pretty confident. And I know I mentioned Joe Mixon. No one knows me. He's going to come back. He's out for the first 4 weeks for sure. I've seen Twitter doctors say like it's a complicated injury, what he's got, and he might not be back till like week 8. I honestly, the Texans buys in week 6, so I probably don't really even expect him back till week 7 at the earliest. And the Texans always play their injuries super coy. I mean, we've all heard Nick Caserio talk. He talks in pseudonyms half the time, which that's just what GMs do. And D'Amico Ryans is all about. He talked about it. He's like, I'm about protecting the player. I don't need to say anything about Joe Mixon because Joe Mixon's handling that on his own. I'm paraphrasing what D'Amico Ryans said, but the Texans are very coy about their injuries, and they're not going to put out a week and then Joe Mixon's not back the week that they say, and then all the media comes back and it's like, well, you said he was going to be back this week. I think they're just playing it super close. But I don't even know if the Texans know when Joe Mixon's going to be back. But you got Nick Chubb. I saw a lot of good things from Woody Marks, and this is I think people again are Damian Pierce didn't have the best couple of years, but he was playing kind of out of scheme. Wasn't a scheme that fit him with Bobby Slowick and that zone run. He's in a scheme that fits him now. So I think it'll be a committee approach. They'll probably play the hot hand, and Woody Marks has been great in pass protection and catching the football. So we'll probably see him on third down and probably see a mixture of some Damian Pierce and some Nick Chubb. And I think they can muck that up just fine with that trio.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to take the Rams. I do think they will be able to run the ball between the tackles, at least run right on the Texans, but it is going to be difficult. I still think they'll have some success with the play action. I still have to see the Texans O-line. This is a really tough first game for them. I mean, you mentioned everyone on the D-line. You mentioned they had Poona Ford. So I think it's going to be a really tough opening week. And one of the bigger reasons I'm going to take the Rams for this one is I really see the Texans kind of building for the end of the year push. After their week 6 bye, I see it looks like they have like 7 or 8 wins in the schedule after their bye. So for some reason, I just like to think it is going to be a slower start for them this year. The Cam Robinson injury, as much as I do like Ursery, I don't know if I can say Cam Robinson isn't part of the best 5 or shouldn't be part of the best 5. I know he's only a left tackle, so it is tough to pick between the two. I guess I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe Ursery coming in at guard at some point if Cam Robinson's ready to go at any point. Maybe putting Lakin to right guard and Titus right tackle. Maybe that's the best 5 when it's all said and done. And then we'll see on Mixon, and then we'll see on Christian Kirk. They do have a lot of depth at that position, but young guys nonetheless. So I do think it's going to take a bit more time than this year than expected. But I do see right around 10, maybe 11 wins for this team. I just think most of it's going to come after the bye.
Yeah, that's fair. The only thing I disagree with you on is Ursery will not play guard. I don't think ever.
Sliding in.
Yeah, I don't think he's sliding in. And I think if they were gonna go back to what they started the offseason with Cam Robinson and Titus Howard at guard, and then Ursery at right tackle, they would have done it.
Yeah,
I think they just feel that good about Ursery at left tackle. It's not like Cam Robinson played great for the Jags or Vikings last year. I mean, he's on a 1-year, $10 million deal. It's a lot of money, but I think that Nick Caserio, came on my pop show, Pain and Pendergast today, and he said, well, when we signed Cam, we really we're just taking it in steps. Like, we obviously didn't know if Ursery was going to be there when we were picking him. So they were planning for a couple different scenarios, and I don't know if the Texans even thought Ursery would be this ready to play this early, but they feel good about it, so they're putting him out there, and I think that says a lot about how Ursery's played so far this offseason. Again, not getting the fanfare that Josh Simmons has in Kansas City, but I think it's been impressive from that standpoint that he's been able to kind of win the job on his own. Even with Cam Robinson now healthy, they didn't go back to that initial lineup, so they must feel really good about him at left tackle. He'll have a test on Sunday, and I think it'll be very fun to watch nevertheless, if he holds up. I'm going to be jumping through the moon. But
yeah, and I think
so Christian's taking the Rams. What are you, Mike and Pat, what are you taking? Christian's taking the Rams.
I got the Texans. I said I think the Texans will be able to salt it away with their run game, just being able to lean on their defense. And I don't think the Rams offense will be able to get it going how they probably will later on in the year once they've got a little more time and a healthy Matt Stafford. Or I don't know if he's going to get healthy, but at least an acclimated Matthew Stafford who's not, rolling out of the hospital bed onto the field to start the game against one of the best defenses in football.
Yeah, from where I saw it, it's 44.5 is what I got at. I took the under already.
Yeah, I like that. It's a 24-20 type football game. Yeah.
I do want to shout out Jarquez Hunter real quick. I think he's going to
like Jarquez Hunter.
Impact.
I like Jarquez Hunter.
We got to trademark some of these segments like Christian's random ass shout outs at the end of the analysis. I feel like you've always got a good random player.
He's got
shout
one.
out.
But I've always agreed with them. Like,
oh no, I'm not disagreeing with them, but I'm saying we need to trademark these segments like the Ghost Pepper.
He's probably had some good ones.
I can give you a War
He's always had
Eagle.
some good ones. You can give You can give you a what?
War Eagle.
War
Eagle. Yeah, okay, Marquette. Alumni. I don't want to hear anything relating to Alabama football at this point.
I asked Christian what college football team he roots for. Like, I forgot what it was last week. I'm like, you just gotta adopt the team, I guess.
Yeah, I'm a nomad.
You're welcome on the TCU bandwagon.
I remember him having a lot of North Carolina merch growing up, but I don't know if you want to hit your.
You also had a lot of Miami merch growing
Bill
up.
Belichick.
Big time youth movement going on there in North Carolina.
In North Carolina, yeah. God.
No affiliation.
Good one, Turtle.
But